in teaching, you've always got, feedback, haven't you?
Oh, yes, all the time. It's lovely.
So, it wasn't ever any time in my teaching career. You never just get a well done, that was amazing. You always get well done, but also next time. Yeah, so whole, mainly positive, but also with that, how can you improve next time?
Hello, my name's Jenna. I'm an online primary tutor, and today I'm talking to Kay from Tutoring with Kay about how to quit teaching and become a tutor, and also a Forest School practitioner. If you are a tutor watching this video, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining me today, Kay.
Hi, nice to join you. Thanks for having me.
Ah, now we got in touch. Was it on Instagram or Facebook?
It
I
was on
can't quite remember.
Facebook.
It was on Facebook,
Yeah.
and we got chatting, and you very kindly agreed to come on and chat to me because you are actually quite a new tutor. You've only just joined the tutoring community not that long ago. How are you finding it so far?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I've only just started in September, and I've thought about tutoring for a while. And then last year, my friend was going away. She's a tutor, and she said, "Will you just cover a few students for me?" So I did, and I just absolutely loved it. I was a little bit nervous to start my own business, but I'm not looking back.
Oh, well, we'll get more onto that in a little bit, but we'll just go back in time a little bit first. Now, before we even go into your teaching background, one of the things that you told me about was a really incredible job that you used to do before entering the teaching world. And when you said to me, because my background's in art as well, I did an art degree, I was like, I've got to mention that on the interview. So what was your job before teaching and what did you have to do?
So when I left university, I actually did English literature at university. So it was quite an unexpected role. But when I left
Okay.
university, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I wasn't ready to study again. I just wanted a job. And my friend worked for Damien Hirst, the artist, and there was
Ooh.
a position coming up for an office runner. So I went for it and really didn't think I'd get it, not having the, background in art at all. But I did get it. It was such an incredible company to work for. Um, I felt a little bit like a fraudster because I hadn't had that background in art, and I didn't know much about the art world, but it was fantastic. It was from going from being a student to working in a London office for such a famous artist. It was incredible. So I started off as a runner, and then kind of worked my way up, became an assistant, an administration assistant, and then I worked for the website because he had a publishing company, so publishing books and prints and things like that. So I worked for the website, and then I ended up becoming the website manager and doing all the social media for it. So it kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I found myself, I'd been there, I think it was 9 years I worked there. And then I thought, this is incredible lifestyle. We used to go to shows and openings, and we had a chef come into the office,
Oh, wow.
cook lunch. But I turned it all down to go to teaching.
Oh, why did you do that?
Oh, I know it sounds really cheesy, but I've always wanted to be a teacher and work with children. So I just
Oh.
knew I had to try it. Yeah, I was really sad to leave. It was such a fantastic place to work. And it was a little bit of a culture shock going from that to stepping into a classroom where it's just you.
Now, I have
But
to ask, did you meet him?
I did, yes. Yeah, he
And
used
what
to
was he
come and,
like?
oh, brilliant. Such like
Oh,
the most fun boss you can imagine. He used to come into the
oh,
office, and I used to work up the top, and you just hear him coming in. He was like the naughty one that would come in and distract you all from your work. And but he was a great guy. The media are mean to him, they give him a really hard rap, but he's a nice guy, and he was really good to his staff as well.
oh, that's so lovely to hear. That was so, so lovely. Oh, so then you decided to go to the teaching world and you went on the school direct route into teaching. What is that and what did it involve?
Yeah, so the school direct route, there were two different versions. There was the non-salaried and the salaried version. And having been a bit later in life, so I was 30 at the time, I I needed the money really. I couldn't take that break from not earning. So I went for the salaried route. And what that looked like was going straight into the classroom. So I used to have 4 days in the classroom and 1 day training. So my Friday, I used to sit and go to lectures and things. But it was quite an intense route. It was really helpful for me to have that money. But having not had the experience in education before, it was quite intense because you were thrown into the deep end. I worked with my mentor. So for the first term, I worked with her and we had our class, and she was fantastic. She supported me, she gave me tips, she helped me along with things. And then after Christmas, one of the other teachers left. He was actually on a Teach First course. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah, I've
that
heard
course?
about
Yeah,
Teach First. That's quite hard as well, from what
that was a
I've heard.
really tough one. That was even tougher than the
Yeah,
school direct. So
yeah.
he left, and the school said to me, from January, you're going to have your own class. So I
Oh,
completely had my own class from January. I only started in September training, and then in January I had my own class. My mentor was next door with her own class, and I was completely on my own. So it was a tough
okay.
route. And I did have to ask for help during it because I
Well,
wasn't
of course you would.
learning.
You'd need help. Like if you've never done it before, that's crazy.
Yeah, and there wasn't that chance to learn. When you're in a classroom with other teachers, you get to borrow ideas, don't you, and things like that. But I just didn't have that. So I did have to say, I'm going to put my hands up. I do need help. Someone, please come and kind of give me some more guidance because I've kind of run out of all my all my ideas. And then they did support me. They sent someone in with me and gave me a bit more support for the rest of the year.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. I was going to ask whether they actually supported you because sometimes it's not always the way, unfortunately. So, what did that support look like for you?
It was really good, actually. I have got to say, the assistant head came in.
Oh, wow.
My mentor was still next door. She had a class, so she couldn't support me, but they sent the assistant head in, and she was brilliant. She just straight away, it was in Stratford. It was a school in Stratford. It was a year 5 class. There were some challenging children with really tough backgrounds. But she came in, and you can just learn from someone straight away and kind of pick up on, she kind of really got down to the kids' level and communicated with them and related to them, but she also had really firm boundaries. So it did teach me a lot, and I started to enjoy teaching again.
And if you needed help with anything, would she respond to that, or
She
was
Yeah,
she negative about that?
she did respond to it. It's funny in teaching, isn't it? Because I think everyone's got their own different personalities. And when I trained, my mentor was very much the teacher I saw myself as being and who I wanted to be. And so I tried to mirror a lot of what she was doing, but it wasn't natural. It wasn't right for me because it wasn't me. I was kind of copying her style. And then this assistant head came in, and she was completely different. She was very strict. And so then I tried to kind of mirror some of her ways. um, and that wasn't natural either. So I asked for help with things, but I tried to kind of borrow bits and then do my own thing. And because you've got to have your own style as a teacher, haven't you? And kind of have that authenticity so the kids can see you're a person, they can relate to you, and it's more natural, isn't it? So yeah, she did support me, but I did have to kind of say, sometimes you do it this way, I'm not going to do that because that's not right for me. So I kind of did it my own.
That's good that you had the opportunity to do that though. Like you
Yeah,
were allowed to, yes, I'll do that, but then I think I'm going to go down this route because that's quite hard to do when you're first training to be a teacher because there is the kind of other side of it. You want to pass, don't you? And you want to
absolutely.
be, doing what they say and, you've got to get that pass mark to become a teacher. So it's a fine line of what you want to do and what is expected of you. But that's
Yeah.
really good that you like not stood up for yourself. That's a bit strange, but in a way, kind of like stood up for yourself. No, this works for me. And did you
Yeah.
get a positive response when you would initiate different strategies and things like that?
Yeah, really positive response. I think in teaching you've always got, feedback, haven't you?
Oh yes, all the time. It's lovely.
So, it wasn't ever any time in my teaching career. You never just get a well done, that was amazing. You always get well done, but also next
Mhm.
time. Yeah, so whole, mainly positive, but also with that, how can you improve next time? Which we love.
Oh, it's lovely. And the sad thing is, it applies to children as well. You
It
always
does.
had to give a next step. And like even in early years, you'd have to give a next step. And I'd be like, surely just nice positive comment is all that is needed. Surely just focus on that, then nothing else.
Absolutely, I completely agree because it can be quite disheartening, can't it? When you're trying so hard to do something and you can just see that next step coming, you just sometimes want a little bit of a break and a little bit of a just well done for that. That's the end, full stop.
Yeah, the end, done. So, would you, if you were to go back in time and someone said to you, school direct route, would it be a yes or would it be a, oh, I'll look at other options?
Oh, that's a really, really tough question. Um, it's really hard. I try not to kind of regret things. Um, and I do always try to look at things with a silver lining and say the positive from that was. And I really do with that experience, even though I found it the hardest year of my life. And I actually got married at the end of that year as well. So not only trying to be a teacher, I was planning my wedding. I don't know how I did it. I have no idea. Um, so it was a really hard year, but I think I wouldn't be the kind of teacher, tutor person I am now had I not had that year.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
I would definitely do it again. I would love to go back again now though and do that year again with the same kids, after all I've learned 10 years later and go back in and yeah, do the year
Oh.
again.
So if someone is starting a similar route to what you did, what would you say to them? What piece of advice would you give them?
My main piece of advice is look after yourself because I struggled with that. Really need to look after yourself and
Mm.
make sure you're drinking water and eating food because you skip lunch and all sorts of things. But also, like I was saying earlier, have your boundaries in terms of it's okay to say no. When
Mm.
the school said to me, you've got your own class, there is a little part of me that thinks maybe I should have said no. It wasn't offered as a choice, but you can say no to things and you can negotiate your own way. So yeah, try to have your boundaries and stick to them because you need to be in a good place in order to be able to teach and look after those children.
Yeah, I think sometimes, or a lot of times in teaching, you don't realise you have a choice. And the
No,
way things are presented to you are, you are going to do this. And I understand that to a certain extent, because obviously if your head teacher comes to you and say, I need to do this, and you're like, no, then it creates a very awkward situation. But I suppose that's why, with teachers staying so late and feeling the pressure to stay after school and everything, if more teachers did say no,
yeah.
would more teachers be confident to go and have a better work-life balance? Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe.
think you're
I'm
completely
not
right.
sure.
I think you're absolutely right. It is just having that confidence to be able to do it, isn't it? And know that you will be supported by your colleagues, if not by senior leadership, because not
Mm.
everyone has that in certain schools, do they? But like you said, if enough of your colleagues would do the same.
Well, you went on then to become a full-time teacher in London, of all places.
Yeah.
Not only a teacher, but a teacher in London. So what roles did you go on to do as a full-time teacher in London?
Yeah, so I work with a few different year groups in London, mainly Key Stage 2. Um, And I loved being a full-time class teacher because you've got your own class, you're in there every day, you get to know the children, you get to kind of be in control of their progress and every decision that's made about them. But like we've said, it's very hard. The workload is full on, and especially working in London, there was the area I was in, there was a lot of home problems and a lot of poverty. So it's not only just making sure they're hitting their educational targets, it's making sure that they are feeling happy and safe when they come into school, and their emotional well-being needs are being met as well. So I was very lucky. I had a behaviour specialist at the school who worked with all the teachers and got to know the children and got to know their exact needs. And again, I learned a lot from her because that was one of the things that was really tough in London, was the behaviour. But it's just trying to learn something from everyone you meet as you go along your journey, I think. That was probably the biggest challenge, though, the behaviour.
And do you think you had much training on how to support children's behaviour when you were training to be a teacher? Because I certainly didn't.
No, definitely not. And that's one of the reasons I struggled, is because being put in the classroom, you use all the strategies that you learn in your training, but then they run out. And then you think, what next? You kind of need other things, because not every child's going to work with those strategies. You need to kind of tailor it to those individuals, and you don't have that when you're training, when you've just qualified.
No, they don't really teach you, because certain strategies work in certain kind of schools in certain areas, and then in other schools they just don't work at all. And it's all about, the context of the individual child, the family that they live with, the rules they have in place at home versus school. And it is understanding the children and where they're from. So you've kind of answered my next question about like working in London. Is there anything else about teaching in particular in London that you don't think you'd get anywhere else?
I loved the diversity in London. I loved going in and, all the different cultures, all the different backgrounds, all the different religions. The children in the school were so educated about all these different religions and cultures because they just came to life in school, and everyone had so much respect for each other, and curiosity. I loved that about London. And that was something that I found quite sad when I moved outside of London and going into another school where you're teaching about different religions and cultures from a PowerPoint, or even from kind of objects in the classroom. It just doesn't give the same experience.
Doesn't click, does it really?
No, it doesn't. I think that's when your trips come in and bringing families in when you can, but some areas
the
don't.
phrase, and there was a new term, wasn't there, where you had to do more trips, but is it called multicultural? Well, I can't remember, but it was a whole thing at one point to bring in more, because like children hadn't even, in some schools, hadn't been to a supermarket or been to a park or dentist, and they like, you'd talk about those, those everyday experiences, but they weren't every day for some children.
No,
And unless you've got that
not.
actual experience, you cannot relate to it. So then when you're looking at religions and different things like that, a child who's never actually met anyone with that who is part of that religion or anything, they won't have a good understanding just from like watching a PowerPoint or whatever it may be.
It's just not the same, is it? It's really not
no.
the same. And we're talking about parks and things like that. When I worked in London, so I live in Essex near Southend. So, and then I was travelling up to London to work in the school, and we did a beach trip to Southend. So I travelled up at like 6 a.m. to the school. We got the kids, travelled back to Southend, did the beach trip, and then I travelled back to work, took the kids back, and then came back to. It was like the longest day ever. But some of those kids in London had never been to the beach, and they'd never seen the sea. And just moments like that stay with you, don't they? Where you think, I
Yeah,
feel so privileged to be here for this moment where this child is seeing the sea for the first time.
I know. And to see their reaction as
Yeah, that's
well.
it.
It's like so pure what
That's it.
their, that pure reaction when they've never seen it before. Like a
That's
little
it.
bit of a side note, but like I've seen fully grown adults, on TikTok and things like that, and it's the first time they've ever stepped in the water. And it's just crazy that they get to like 40, 50 years old and they've never touched the sea. It's,
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
you do take things for granted a lot. So if a new teacher was going to teach in London, what would you say to them to help them along the way?
I would say just enjoy it, enjoy where you are. I mean, I loved working in London and kind of just the community around it and just everything going on. But also to be aware of those children that they might have kind of tough backgrounds, they might have other things going on outside of school. So really get to know those children and try to get to know those families and those communities as much as you can, because I think that does absolute wonders for making connections.
I always felt that you were taught how to teach and to plan, and then you take your lesson and, go and deliver it. But then, like you say, you don't realize what each child's got going on. So you might have planned this amazing lesson in your head, but if one little child comes in and they've had the most horrific night the night before, the whole class is impacted then because
Yeah,
they're worried about their friends and they're worried about, is that child okay? So you need to throw out the diary entry writing and sort the child out first. So it's just having that awareness really
that's
when you're
it.
first
Yeah.
starting out.
And it's hard to find that in your timetable, isn't it? To actually find a
Yes.
kind of well-being spot, because you're thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to get through this lesson now. And
I know,
then it's
and you get
break,
so
and then
stressed about it. Did you used to get like your heartbeat racing? You're just like, I need to get this done. I need to get this done.
that's it. And then they're going to be looking at my books and
Oh, I know. Don't start to me about that. So then you moved on to supply teaching. Was that still in London or was that
that was back in
outside?
Essex now. Yes, I moved back to
Right.
Essex. I thought I'll do some supply, get to know the kind of schools local to where I live. Um, and then I fell pregnant as well. So I
Oh,
was like, oh gosh, okay, I've just left a full-time secure job. And now I'm doing supply and yeah, going to be having a baby. But it worked out brilliantly because then I could kind of pick and choose what days I wanted, and I carried that on once I'd had my daughter. So I could do just 2 days a week or a little bit more if I was able to, or no days if it was a hard week. It really was, it was a great way to teach and again learn, because you're going into different schools, seeing their systems, seeing other teachers, what they're doing, working with other LSAs, but also be able to step away at the end of the day and think, this isn't going to be, I'm not going to have book scrutiny or team meeting or parents' evenings. I can just go in and enjoy teaching and then step back and go home to my daughter.
I really do think it should be a requirement to do supply really before you go into teaching, because I think if you end up in a school that is not right for you at all, and that does happen to many people, you
Yeah.
have to do then a certain period of time working at that school before you can consider going. So
Yeah.
if you went to different schools maybe before you qualified, or after you qualified, sorry, and then you could say, oh, that's not for me, that's for me, or like that, I don't like that at all, I'm staying clear of that. It might just give people a bit more of the reality of the job
Absolutely.
as
Yeah, I think
well.
that'd be great. I think, the more experience you can get of other settings and other teachers, I think the better, because you can figure out what you want and where you want to be and
Mm,
what's important to you.
mm. So then did you then get a part-time teaching job?
I did, yeah. So once my daughter started school, I got a part-time teaching job at the school she was starting at. So
Oh,
I was so lucky. I got 2 days a week. It's
Oh
like,
wow, that's really unheard of.
I know, it's like the golden part-time job.
And how did you get that? Like, how did you come across it?
So basically it was I was job sharing with it was actually key stage leader at that time, and she needed 2 days out of class to do all her admin and things like that. And so yeah, I took up the role of the 2 days. I was
And
just
how long
very,
did
very
you do
lucky.
that for?
So I did that for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years, and worked with the same person. We got along really well. She was amazing, super organized. And it was a really good balance because 2 days was just enough to take a little bit home, but it didn't take over my entire week or my entire weekend. I was still able to have that family balance.
That's lovely. And like you say, there wasn't much work in outside of those 2 days, or just a little bit maybe.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I mean, I was very lucky with my job share because she was so experienced in the school, and because she was senior leadership, she did take on a lot. So I did have to say to her, it's okay, like I can do things as well. You're used to being in this classroom full time, but I can take things off you. Don't do too much, because we do as teachers, don't we? We do everything.
Yeah.
I had to say, it's okay, like let's share it out a bit. Um, yeah, she was incredible. I was really lucky. I know I've heard other people struggle with job shares because you're
Yeah.
working so closely with someone, but I was very
Mm.
lucky to be working with her, and I was able to manage my workload.
One thing a lot of part-time teachers mention is that when they go, what days did you say you work? Was it Monday, Tuesday?
I actually worked Wednesday, Thursday,
Oh,
very
that's not
random,
unusual
but it was just when the
combination.
meetings were. So I did two
Oh,
days of meetings after school as well.
okay then. So then, did you find it weird going in on a Wednesday and leaving on a Thursday? Like,
It,
was there a lot? Because schools move very fast.
yeah, it was
Was it a
very,
lot of constant catching up?
that was the problem, kind of knowing what I had to, even though you're in for your 2 days, you can't just kind of stay in your lane. You've got to read all the lessons for the whole week so that you can see the progress, see where they've come
Mm.
from. And also, because I wasn't in on a Friday, make sure I leave them where they need to be so that my job share could pick up the next day and do the things that she needed to do. So it was a lot of kind of juggling things and handing things over and notes on the desk. We did this, but we didn't do this, and such struggled with this, and we had to hand over a lot in terms of things. But because it was 2 years, we kind of got into a little bit of a rhythm with it, and we kind of needed to leave less notes because we kind of knew how each other worked, so we knew we could take a look around and kind of know where things were
Mm.
at.
That's good because I've come across one school I worked in the other class next door to me. They were part-time both, and they had a really good working relationship, and they were kind of both on the same level of, enthusiasm, excitement, level of work that they both did. So it seemed to work really, really well, but I imagine it could be quite awkward, couldn't it, if you don't get on if personalities clash or work styles clash, or could be quite difficult.
Absolutely, yeah, it must be really hard to share that space, and yeah, it must be really intense if you don't get along with the person,
Mm.
or like you said, your work style clashes. I think you've got to really be on the same page as, yeah, where you are with kind of classroom, kind of the vibe of the classroom as well. Do you
Yes,
know what
you'd
I'm
have
trying
to
to
let
say?
go a lot, wouldn't you? If you wanted things done a certain way, but the other teacher didn't like it, you'd have to compromise and find
That's
a middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Mm. So
yeah.
then, what made you come to the decision to quit teaching?
Well, because they said to me, we're not going to have a 2 day role anymore.
Oh
It's going to be
no.
taken over by a HLTA. Um, so
Oh,
I'm like, okay, that's fine. I get that. There's no money in schools at the moment, is there? It's really hard. It's just so sad. But that, you know, there might have been full-time positions coming up in the future, but I just thought, you know what, I can't do full-time when I've got 2 young kids. 2 days was kind of my limit. And then because my friend had asked me to do some tutoring the previous year, and I've
Yeah.
done a little bit of tutoring, she kept kind of saying to me, you should do it, you should do it. And I thought, actually, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed just having that one-to-one with the children. And I thought, why not give it a go and see how it goes? And if it doesn't go very well, I can always go back to school or go back. I probably would have gone back to supply had it not gone very well, because I like the freedom of supply. But yeah, I thought I'd kind of dip my toe into tutoring and I really liked it. So I thought, why not give it a go, doing it
And
online.
how's it gone so far? So what are you currently doing? Like, what are you offering, that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
sure. So I'm doing primary tutoring. I'm doing one-to-one sessions. I started off doing 2 evenings, and then I just had so many inquiries because I taught at the local primary school, and then you know, I kind of put it on Facebook, and my school were amazing, and everyone was really supportive in sharing it
Oh,
online as
that's so
well. So a lot of the
nice.
parents got to hear that's what I was doing. So a lot of the parents got in touch of children that I taught, or just parents I knew at the school, or parents I've met at kind of baby classes and things, being a parent in the area. Um, so then I opened up to Saturdays as well. So I do 2 evenings and Saturdays. And I've just had so many inquiries, just lots of people. It's just sad not to be able to fulfill it. I wish I could work every evening and work Saturday and Sunday and squeeze everyone in, but I need to prioritize time with my children. So I'm sticking to my 2 evenings and my one Saturday, you know, a Saturday. And I'm this summer, I'm trying some groups online as well. So I'm doing a maths group online. I'm going to try to branch out in different ways so that I can support children that are coming to me, because it's so horrible, isn't it, when you want to help these children and the parents are coming to you asking for you for help, and you can't provide them anything. You kind of feel like, oh, I can refer you to other tutors, but I know they're quite full as well. Um, so I'm trying to look at different ways I can support them, maybe online or in groups, try and squeeze everyone in.
Oh, that's really good. That's a nice problem to have when you just started out. And then when you do eventually want to do more, you know there's there's the inquiries, you will have the work. So that, because I think
Yeah.
that's one thing when leaving teaching, because if you're used to teaching, and to be honest, I didn't really know of anything else to do apart from teaching. And I often see that question online, what else can I do? And people worry, like, what am I going to do next, basically? So it's nice that you've been able to have that positive experience straight away. If you knew anyone else that was becoming a tutor, what do you think you would advise them? Is there anything that you've done that you think, oh, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't do that again? I know you said that you don't like live with regrets or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm
But
trying to
if there's
think
one thing that
actually.
you'd be like, no, don't do this.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think something I might come back to that. Something I probably would say to do that I haven't done or I didn't do at the start is connect with other tutors like yourself online
Oh,
and
okay.
find people, because I didn't really know that was a thing at first. I thought you just tutored and that was it. You just did your own thing. You tried to find parents, you know, and there's this whole community of us, aren't there? And it's lovely to go online and find other tutors. And I haven't found a tutor yet that is kind of, why are you connecting with me? Why are you following me? Don't kind of, everyone wants to connect and share their ideas and support each other. It's such a lovely community. And I think that would have taken away a lot of the fear initially had I connected a little bit more with the tutoring community. Yeah, I would say to anyone starting out, definitely do that, because there's so much information out there and so much support. everyone's so friendly, aren't they?
Yeah, it does help, because I think if you've left a school that you didn't have a positive experience at, and I'm going to be honest, for me personally, when I left, I just thought, I don't really want to, I just want to go my own route. That's it, done.
Yeah.
Just like you, get my families, that's kind of thing. But then you get kind of lonely a little bit, because if you used to go into a school and you interact with a lot of people every day, whether you realize it or not, and to go from that to like potentially working at home by yourself for days on end, you do
Yeah.
need that interaction, and people are very open to chatting and helping each other. And I personally myself have found it a lot more of a positive environment than in some schools I've worked in. You know,
Yeah,
there were schools
absolutely.
I've worked in that you couldn't approach people because it was seen as a negative thing to ask for help.
Yeah.
And in some schools, that is becoming more of the case. And, you know, if teachers ask for help, you know, I've seen early years teachers talking about how they're on a support plan because they're not changing their resources every day. And I'm thinking, well, how can they change the resources every day? That's exhausting. Like, that's just
Yeah.
pointless. But anyway, so yeah, I do agree with you on the tutoring front. Do reach out to others, because especially like when you are taking on a business role, which none of us have done before, we don't have a clue
No.
about. And you know, people have different tips, and you know, they can share recommendations like for an accountant or something like that. So there's
Yeah.
always someone to offer you advice. And often when you're dealing with it on your own, the problem can seem massive. But then if
Yeah.
you talk about it with a few people, you can get it sorted like within, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, and you think, oh, why didn't I think of that? That was such a stupid amount of stress for no reason.
Yeah,
So silly.
absolutely. And all the questions you've got in your head, you search online, and so many people have asked it before. You kind of go, oh, it's not just me worried about this. It's not just me having this problem. Oh, look at all these answers that people have offered. It's
I do
great.
think you have to take some answers with a pinch of salt, because like when I started out, you know, people ask, what do I charge? And that is a really difficult question to answer, because it depends on the area that you're in, it depends on what you teach, it depends on a whole host of factors. So,
Yeah,
and then, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I charge like, and they'll mention really extreme amounts. But in some places you can't charge that, because you might live in a really an area where people just don't have a lot of money. So
yeah,
some questions you ask, you do have to be a bit, you know, careful when reading them, and not feel, oh my
yeah.
goodness, I'm not making the same as that person. You have to do what's right for you at the end of
That
the
makes
day.
sense. Yeah, absolutely
So
agree.
you are also a Forest School practitioner. How did that come up?
Again, I kind of just I saw on Facebook a local forest school asking for bank staff, and I thought, well, bank staff, I've done supply, I can do that. And to be honest, I've always loved the idea of forest school. You know, a few years ago, probably before I got my part-time role, when I was, you know, off with my children, I was thinking, oh, supply teaching, can't do it forever. What can I do? And I kind of was thinking, shall I try and kind of train as a forest school practitioner? Shall I take this course? It's huge amount of money. But I didn't do that. But I've always had it in my heart that I would love to work in a forest school. So I saw this advert come up for bank staff, and I replied, and then started working there, just kind of ad hoc when they needed me. And then just recently I've started permanently. So I'm doing 2 days a week there. And it's just so lovely. It's such a lovely working environment. Do you know all those things you're saying about a school? Even if you have had a good experience in a school, there's still that kind of culture in a school, isn't there? Even with schools that are trying to change things, there still is that culture in a school where you can't always feel comfortable asking for help. You can't always kind of say those words, I don't know how to do that, without feeling like you're being judged. at the Forest School I work with, it's just so nurturing and supportive
Oh,
and lovely. Obviously the manager makes a big difference to that, but also the team she's got, just everyone is just on the same page. They're just there for the children, but also looking after their own well-being as well, you know, keeping in touch with that. So I absolutely love
and
it.
what does your role involve?
Um, so basically playing in the woods. Obviously I do some planning. So we do some planning for activities, and I actually work with the younger children. So I work with, it's a preschool, but it's also an extra provision for home educated children. So we have children from 3 all the way up to 11.
Oh,
And then we split off for activities, and I work with the younger children. So I, work with the EYFS framework for that and plan some activities. But it's very free, it's very kind of child-led, and we try to get them to do certain things to be, slightly ready for school, but it's more about the children and making sure that they're happy and they lead their learning. It's so, child-led. And some of the things they do is just incredible. We've got mud kitchens, there's a digging area, but there's also kind of hammocks and swings, so climbing trees, you've got all the gross development there. And then there's woodwork area, so we've got real tools that they can work with, saws and
wow.
drills and create things from wood. And then art opportunities, writing opportunities, maths opportunities, but they create their own fun, they create their own learning, really, building dens and problem solving, working with each other. I really wish every school could come and just have one day a week in a forest school. I know some schools do. Some schools have their own forest school on site or go off and do it. But I really think it should be a requirement for all schools to do it, because just being outside in nature is so good for our well-being, and there's so much learning that can happen there as well.
And how has it changed your kind of idea behind education since working in a school, or has it changed anything that you
Yeah,
think about education?
yeah, it has. I mean, it's sad, really. I feel like it's kind of opened my eyes to the classroom setting and think, oh, we are, as teachers in a classroom, everything is so limited in terms of the learning. We've got this lesson planned, and no matter how creative you try to be, you've got 30 children and you have to keep it
Mm.
within a certain structure. So it does make me quite sad about the current education system, that children can't lead their journey as much as they can do outdoors, and also have, like we were saying earlier, have the time for that well-being, have the time for that restorative chat. If things aren't going right at school or at home, in the woods, we can just make sure that those children are feeling safe and happy and secure. And it doesn't matter if things don't get done, because the priority is the child. Whereas at school, of course, the priority is the child for every single teacher. They look at those children, but you've got that pressure from above to tick all those boxes and you get through the curriculum and do all those things. So it's just, in my mind, I just feel like it's a little bit more limited.
Mm. I think we're so far behind in the UK in terms of education and what's appropriate, because like when I watch videos of children like in Denmark and
Yeah,
Sweden, and you're talking about the tools, and like they're
yeah,
all using like fully, adult tools, and they know how to do it
yeah,
safely and with control. And
that's
but yeah, in
it.
English schools, if something's slightly off on something in the playground, oh no, can't touch it, stay away from it. And
Absolutely. And I
yeah,
completely get that from a health and safety point of view, but it does just take, if we can do it, schools can do it. It's just making sure that your training's on point and your risk assessments are on point,
and
and
also
just,
levels of
yeah.
staff, I
Yeah.
imagine. because if, like you
yeah.
say, 30 children, and
That's
some classes don't even have a TA anymore. It's just a
No, I
teacher.
never had a TA when
Oh,
I
did
was
you not?
working.
Oh,
No,
wow.
when I was working in London and training in my first year when I got my classroom, didn't have a
Oh,
TA.
wow.
And then in supply, I loved it because there was another adult in the classroom that you could ask them to help with things. Um, and then yeah, when I worked locally again, I worked in year one and year two, and it was just we used the extra adults for interventions, which was
Mm.
really helpful. But sometimes when you've got 30 children in a class and, getting ready for PE or getting ready for, a
Oh,
performance or a play, that was the hardest days.
it's funny, our priorities, like, um, I worked in Catholic schools and we'd be doing like the nativity well over a month getting ready for it. And you think, surely there's better things to be doing. I remember one year I was like, right, we're just doing a couple of songs and having the parents in our classroom. And it was the easiest year. It was so easy. And the parents loved it.
Oh,
Instead of
yeah.
this, like, taking hours every day to practice these songs for a
And
nativity, like,
it's a lot for the children to sit still and
mm,
pile and,
mhm,
not play with their shoelaces for that long all the time. I think our expectations of children's in the school system is completely warped. I sometimes think I wouldn't want to work in these conditions, but we're
mhm.
making our children kind of, hit these
Yeah,
unrealistic targets.
yeah. I think when you do come out of teaching and you start to study and you start to, and especially people like yourself that do have children, and I know a lot, I've read about a lot of teachers that just don't want to send their children to school because of what they've come across outside of school and the benefits of various different types of education and all that kind of thing. So I do wonder how it's going to progress over time, because
Yeah,
obviously lots of changes since lockdown, the
yeah,
world's changed dramatically since that point.
that's it. Yeah.
So, just to finish off then, it's been amazing to chat to you. I've learned so much. I will leave all your details down below, but where can we find you and what are you currently offering? Do you have availability at all, or have you got a waiting list or something like that?
Super. Thank you. Thank you for chatting to me. It's been lovely to chat to you. Enjoyed it. We do this every week, Jenna.
Oh, lovely. I look forward to it.
Um, so I'm tutoring with Kay or tutoring with Kay Walsh. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. I am offering one-to-one sessions, but like I said, I have got a waiting list for that. I've got a waiting list document. You can find the link on Facebook or Instagram. And then over the summer, I'm going to be offering some groups online as well on online
Oh,
courses. So watch this space.
oh. That sounds so exciting. Well, like I said, I'll leave all your details down below. So if anyone wants to work with you, wants their children to work with you, then hopefully they'll be in touch. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked today's video, please make sure to subscribe to see who else I'm chatting to.